My wife and brother-in-law asked me to stop acting like my stepdaughter's father because they didn't want her to date her older boyfriend. But now she's coming back scared because she thinks she's pregnant. I've been with my wife for 11 years. Her daughter was 5 when I came into her life, so I've known her for a long time. Her biological father disappeared long before I showed up. He never paid child support, never sent birthday cards, nothing. I was the one who picked her up from school, paid for new clothes, covered medical bills, paid for school plays, bought Christmas presents, and everything in between. She grew up in my house, eating my food and sleeping under the roof I worked for. The problem isn't my stepdaughter herself, but my wife and her brother, my stepdaughter's uncle. They don't think I have anything to say about her, because I'm not her father. To help you understand better, I'll tell you what happened 2 weeks ago. My stepdaughter wanted to go out with her boyfriend. He's 18, she's 16. I told her I didn't like him and said no. There's something about that guy I don't trust. And it's not just the 2-year age difference. It may seem small, but at that age, 2 years is a lot. I thought we had agreed as parents on certain rules about this. But apparently, my opinion doesn't matter. That same day, her uncle came over. When I said she wasn't going out, both he and my wife jumped on me. You're not her father. Stop acting like you are. Those were their exact words right there in front of her. If you want to take away any kind of authority from someone, that's the way to do it. Because they basically told a teenager it was okay not to listen to me. In that moment, I wasn't just trying to impose authority. I was genuinely concerned for her safety. She may not be my biological daughter, but I've watched her grow up since she was 5. Of course I care about her. It's not like I just met her 2 weeks ago and wouldn't care what happens. Honestly, I'd still care even if I had. That's just who I am. But they made me angry. So I said, okay, let her go. She's not my daughter. She's not my problem. She came back the next morning crying her eyes out, locked in the bathroom with her phone, telling her mother she thought she was pregnant. And then my wife came to me, expecting me to comfort her. Yes, the same girl I wasn't allowed to parent because I wasn't her father. But when she needed a father figure, suddenly I had to step in. Her uncle? Nowhere to be found. I looked my wife straight in the eyes and told her she was right. I'm not her father, so she should deal with this with her mother or her uncle, since they were the ones who decided I had no say. My wife yelled at me saying the situation was serious and I had to help. She told me I was being too sensitive when this was a situation that could ruin her daughter's life. We don't know if she's actually pregnant yet, but judging by her fear, it's possible. Clearly, she doesn't know how to protect herself. And apparently, neither her uncle nor her mother thought it was necessary to give her even the minimum level of sex education. Now, my wife is angry with me because, according to her, I'm abandoning them and I don't care. Abandoning them? Me? I was the one abandoned the moment they told me it wasn't my place to have an opinion. I told her very clearly, my opinion and my help are off the table. I'm not going to interfere. And I also told her that if a single cent of our joint money is used for this situation, I'll take it all in the divorce. If her brother feels so strongly that I shouldn't get involved, then let him pay for the morning after pill or the doctor's visit. If her biological father suddenly reappears, let him write a check. I'm not going to be the wallet without having any authority. And I wasn't kidding. That same night, I went online and started moving money from our joint account into my personal account. I locked the savings and made sure she couldn't touch them without me. I already have an appointment with a lawyer next week. You want to test me? You're going to lose. I don't care if it sounds cruel. I don't care if people think I overreacted. For years, I've walked that line, letting them remind me that I'm just the stepdad whenever it suits them. And then as soon as there's a crisis, I'm suddenly expected to become the best dad in the world and throw money at the problem. No, not this time. Don't count on me. They got themselves into this mess by choice, and they'll have to get out of it on their own because they don't have any other option. What makes it worse is that my wife's brother has always hated it when I set limits. He's been divorced twice. He doesn't see his own children, but he loves to sit in my living room and tell me how I shouldn't discipline my stepdaughter. He loves being the fun uncle who says yes when I say no. Because with his own kids, he never had that chance. His ex-wives disciplined them, and then he disappeared when the consequences became too much for him. I'll never forget the smile on his face when he told me I wasn't her father. He thought it was funny to humiliate me in front of her. Well, now he can see how funny it is when I stop caring. My stepdaughter doesn't say much to me anymore. I think she knows deep down that I was right, and is embarrassed to talk about it. But she sided with her uncle and mother because it gave her an excuse to get out and do whatever she wanted. That's the problem. The one who sets the rules is always the bad guy. But when everything blows up, it's nothing but crying and manipulation. It wasn't long before things escalated. My stepdaughter didn't even wait for her mother to step in. She decided to take matters into her own hands and tried to steal from me. I caught her taking money from my wallet, more than just a few dollars. It was a couple of $100. I don't know how much a motel room costs, but it was clear she was planning on using that money to go there with her boyfriend. I had a bad feeling that morning when I saw my wallet in the wrong spot. It wasn't where I normally leave it. Something felt off. So I checked. Sure enough, money was missing. I decided to watch her closely, and not long after, I saw her leave the house. I followed her down the street, and there she was, standing in front of a motel with her boyfriend. I don't even know if it's legal for an 18-year-old to rent a room, but I know for sure a 16-year-old can't. I didn't wait for her to come back. I walked straight up to her and confronted her right there on the sidewalk. She froze like a deer in the headlights as people stopped to stare. I didn't care. I told her, loud enough for everyone to hear, that she was a thief who stole from her mother's husband because she couldn't control herself. She burst into tears in front of that motel. Her boyfriend tried to take her away, but I kept going. I told her she was lucky I didn't call the police. If she wanted to act like an adult, then she had to face adult consequences. I know it sounds harsh, but I was furious. She had stolen from me. Of course, when we got home, she started screaming at me, and my wife went into damage control mode. She tried to tell me I humiliated her daughter. I told her no, her daughter humiliated herself. She's old enough to have sex with her boyfriend, old enough to steal, and old enough to get caught. That means she's old enough to deal with the consequences. My wife didn't like that answer. She yelled at me saying I was a bad father to her daughter and that this wasn't how a real father behaves. She said this was exactly why they never let me act like her father in the first place. I laughed in her face. Because when it suits them, I'm not a father. But when they need me, I have to become one suddenly. That was it for me. I told her I was filing for divorce. That ended the conversation. She locked herself in the bedroom with my stepdaughter, and I didn't see either of them for hours. I didn't even bother knocking. I had said enough. The next morning, I made it official. I instructed my lawyer to proceed with the paperwork. And I told my stepdaughter she would have to figure out her own way to get to school from now on. I wasn't going to wake up early to drive her anymore. I wouldn't give her gas money if she wanted a ride. Nothing. She can walk or beg her boyfriend for a ride. I'm not going to be a chauffeur for someone who robs me. She yelled at me that she was glad I wasn't her dad, and threw more insults my way. Good. Because I wasn't going to try to be one anymore. I also called the phone company and cut off her line. She was on my plan, and I had paid every bill for years without even receiving a thank you. I'm not going to keep funding her lifestyle. If she wants a phone, she can figure out how to get one without using my money. When she realized her phone wasn't working, she freaked out. You know how teenagers are with their phones. You can cut off their food, their air, but take away their phone and suddenly the world is ending. She can ask her mother to add her to her plan and pay for both lines. Maybe they'll even give her a discount for sharing blood, since that's what apparently matters most to everyone else. Her uncle eventually returned, crawling out of hiding just to try to throw his weight around. That's all he's good for. He came puffing his chest, threatening me in my own house. He said if I didn't stop intimidating his niece, he'd handle me himself. I told him that if he ever set foot in my house again, I could have him arrested for trespassing. Then I asked him how exactly he planned to handle me. He laughed at first, thinking I was bluffing. But when he saw I wasn't joking, that smile disappeared real quick. It's not like I carry a deadly weapon, but I'm not about to be intimidated by a coward. Besides, this is a drunk with no job who spends more time playing video games or hanging out with friends than being with his own kids. If he wants to play tough guy, he can do it somewhere else. My stepdaughter hasn't looked me in the eye since that day in front of the motel. She locks herself in her room, slamming doors and whispering to her mother. I don't care. Every slam of the door only proves me right. She wanted me out of her life, and she got what she wanted. But now she's learning the hard way that my money and my patience went with me. Do I feel bad? Not one bit. How ironic that I went from not being her father to suddenly being the bad guy simply because I refused to finance her mistakes. It turns out my stepdaughter isn't pregnant after all. She took a test, and it came back negative. But instead of being relieved and learning from the scare, she's acting like nothing happened. She seems to have learned absolutely nothing. I've started treating them exactly the way they told me I should. And it's driving them crazy. They said they didn't want me meddling in their business. Fine. I don't. But my money doesn't either. The biggest thing that happened this week is that my stepdaughter tried to contact her biological father. That guy hasn't been in her life for years. He's never paid a penny in child support. And the last I heard, he can't even hold down a job for more than a few months. Honestly, he and my brother-in-law would probably get along great. Both of them are failures, both love to talk big, and both vanish when it comes time to take responsibility. The worst part is that my stepdaughter thought contacting him would upset me. But instead, I was glad. If that's the man they all consider her real father, then he can finally step up and take responsibility. He won't, but he should try. When I found out, I just laughed and wished her good luck. If she thinks that a loser is going to solve her problems, she's in for a hard reality check. And just as I expected, he didn't show up. I don't know if she really thought he would or if she just wanted to use him to make me feel bad. But either way, neither plan worked. He didn't come, and I didn't feel a thing. She had to deal with the disappointment all on her own. Now she walks around the house moping, saying she has no one. Well, she has her mother and her uncle. Or at least she thinks she does. But the truth is, she really has no one. Honestly, I'd feel depressed too if I had put myself in her shoes. Sure, she still has her boyfriend. But let's be real, he's another good-for-nothing. If she ends up pregnant for real one day, he'll probably disappear just like her father did. My wife and I are talking, but only to sort out the logistics of how they're going to move out of my house. Because that's exactly what's going to happen. This is my house. And after the divorce, I'll still be living here. She, on the other hand, wants me to back out of the divorce. Too late for that. She couldn't even stand up to her brother when he came to threaten me. Maybe she thought those threats would magically make the situation go away. They didn't. And don't even get me started on everything that's happened since. She hasn't even punished her daughter for stealing from me. That was the final straw. So no, I'm not canceling the divorce. I'm not going to help her daughter and they have 30 days to leave my house. My lawyer will send the eviction notice tomorrow to make it official and start the clock ticking. At least she can be thankful her daughter returned the money before she spent it. Otherwise, I would have filed a theft report as well. A couple of weeks ago, I caught my stepdaughter sneaking her boyfriend into the house. I wasn't surprised. He's been reckless for a long time. What infuriated me, though, was the total lack of respect. With only a few days left until eviction, he still thought he could use my home as his personal hotel. I told him to pack his things and leave immediately. My wife came running, begging me not to throw them out, saying they still hadn't found a place to stay. I told her to look faster because the clock was already ticking. I made it clear to my stepdaughter that if she didn't leave, I would call the police for sneaking her boyfriend into my house. She ended up staying at my brother-in-law's place, which honestly was the most responsible thing he's done in all of this. I wouldn't exactly call him responsible, but at least this time, he's finally putting his actions where his mouth is. My wife then tried to play the threat card, saying that if I didn't let her come back, she would claim in the divorce that I was manipulative and abusive, and that she would take my house away. I told her to go ahead. She didn't realize that ever since I filed for divorce, I had been recording every single interaction with her and her daughter. It wasn't a smart move on her part to try to lie her way through this. But things didn't end there. Out of nowhere, the biological father showed up. After all these years of doing absolutely nothing, he suddenly came looking for something. Probably money. He had the nerve to walk down my driveway and try to talk to me man to man about how I was treating his daughter. Let's get this straight. The guy disappeared for years. He never paid a dime in child support. He didn't call, didn't visit, didn't care. And now he wants to show up and play father. Delusional doesn't even begin to describe it. I told him to his face that he was a pathetic excuse for a parent, and that he needed to get off my property. I even joked that he'd probably get along great with my brother-in-law, and I don't know why the two of them never kept in touch. When he puffed up his chest and said, "Keep pushing and you'll find out," I just laughed. I don't know why these people keep trying to threaten me, but I'm not impressed. After that, my wife's family tried to intervene. They came over to the house trying to smooth things out and calm me down. But I didn't need to calm down. I needed my wife to move out and this divorce to be over. I told everyone to get off my property and not to come back unless they brought moving trucks. My soon-to-be ex-wife still has a lot of things to take, and right now she's basically living at her brother's house anyway. She spends most of her time there, though her stuff is still scattered around my place. Until those boxes are gone, I don't consider her moved out for good. The silver lining is that I haven't had to see much of her these past few days. Honestly, her brother finally stepping up and actually taking them in might be the closest thing to redemption he'll ever have. But let's be real. 3 toxic people living under one roof isn't going to end well. That's their problem, not mine. I'm not her father. And very soon, I won't be her husband or stepfather either. Now everything is settled. The divorce went faster than I expected. My lawyer tore apart her claims like tissue paper. She tried to argue that she deserved half of everything. The house, the cars, the savings, because she supposedly sacrificed her career for our family. But all she could show was a handful of part-time jobs that she quit whenever she felt like it, while I paid all the bills anyway. She even tried to file for child support. My lawyer shut that down immediately, telling her that if she wanted child support, she could go ask the biological father, the one who's been absent all these years. The house is in my name. The retirement account is in my name. The cars are in my name. The judge basically told her she was lucky to walk away with anything at all. In the end, I kept the house, the cars, and most of the savings, because I was the one who contributed the most. She left with whatever things she could carry, and her brother helped her haul them out. And by the way, her brother still hasn't followed through on his threats. I don't know what he's waiting for, but frankly, I don't care. They've moved out of her brother's house. From what I've heard, it's a bad relationship. It's not like she's living much better with her mother either. I think she's miserable spending time there. The biological father has disappeared again. I still don't know exactly what happened, but everything I said would happen is exactly what happened. I also know that my ex-stepdaughter had another pregnancy scare shortly after the divorce was finalized. This time it seemed more serious because they needed a lot of money. Her mother called me begging for it, saying the girl needed a doctor's appointment, and she didn't have enough to cover it. I hung up and let her finish her sentence. She's not my daughter, not my problem. They should remember that. I don't know what they ended up doing, because it's not like they could ask the biological father, the uncle, or even her mother for help. It feels wrong for me to say this, but that girl had the best role model she could have asked for, and she chose the worst three. It's not going to end well for her. To be blunt, I hope my stepdaughter learns from this. She tried to act like an adult, sneaking around with her boyfriend, ignoring everything I tried to do for her, and treating me like garbage. Well, being an adult means facing adult consequences. Her mother can play savior if she wants, but none of that is coming out of my pocket. I know people are going to say I'm cruel, that I watched her grow up and should have done more, but there was nothing else I could do. She was never going to respect me. Her mother and her uncle gave her the life she wanted as a teenager, though not the one she actually needed. Who do you think she was going to listen to? Certainly not me. I may sound angry, but I'm not. Honestly, I think this is the best thing for everyone. It's not that I believe the education my ex and her brother can give her is the best for her, but it's what they wanted. They also wanted my money, but in life, you can't have everything. I know I made it sound like my ex's entire family was bad, but that's not the case. When they came to talk to me, it wasn't everyone. There are a few decent people I still talk to. That's actually how I still hear updates about my ex, her brother, and her daughter. From what I've been told, my ex-stepdaughter pretty much does whatever she wants. She goes out with her boyfriend, comes home at all hours, and even her mother is worried. And for her mother to be worried, it must be serious, because she was always more of a free spirit, who let her daughter do whatever she pleased. As for my ex-brother-in-law, I've heard he's still drinking heavily and has even lost his last job. None of that is new, but apparently this time he's sunk to a whole new level. I can't imagine it. He was already drinking non-stop before, maybe even too much. If this is worse than before, then it must be bad. I even joked once that if he ever made his own alcohol, he could market it as homemade booze that smells like my ass. It would probably be the only job he could hold down. Not long after, I found out he was hospitalized for alcohol poisoning. Apparently, he's now in conversion mode, going to church, attending AA meetings, trying to turn his life around. But I'll believe it when I see it. I've seen him drink himself sick while playing Call of Duty, and imagining him as a church-going man is hard to picture. I wish I had more to say about my ex, but nothing important must be happening in her life. I assume she's worried about all this, and maybe even proud, because her daughter has followed in her footsteps almost exactly. And here's the twist. My ex-stepdaughter is 6 months pregnant. Not from the last scare I mentioned, because she's now 18, and it would have been the longest pregnancy in history. No, this pregnancy is from a 34-year-old man who was cheating on his wife with her. Not in my wildest imagination did I think I'd be writing something like this. And that's not all. This man doesn't want to take care of the baby and even asked her to get an abortion. She didn't. I think he's getting a divorce, and from what I understand, he and his wife didn't have children together. That part is a relief for them. But if they didn't have kids because they didn't want them, then now this man will be a father, whether he likes it or not. As for my ex's brother, after his hospitalization, I've heard he's still pretending to turn his life around. I don't believe it, but maybe he's trying. At least my ex was decent for a little while when we were together. I don't know if that was an act to trap me. or if she truly changed over time. This is probably the last time I'll ever talk about this. It's too much of my past life to keep bringing up. But since a lot of people wanted an update, I thought it was best to share it here. And just to clear it up, I've been told she already had the baby. Beyond that, I don't know much. I've lost almost all contact with my ex's family, and I have no relationship with them anymore. I'm sorry I can't give you more details, but given how bad things already were, I'm sure you can imagine how it turned out.